Hello, everyone. This is Kripa Anand, and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Today, we are exploring the difference between a business that just exists and a brand people actually love. In 2026, where consumer trust is the ultimate currency, branding has become far more than just a visual identity. It's the foundation of every customer decision. Joining us today is Nancy Ripton, Chief Marketing Officer at Silver Lining Marketing. With over 20 years of experience and a background as an editor in chief and best selling author, Nancy brings a unique storytelling lens to brand strategy. She specializes in helping North American companies scale through insight driven differentiation. So, before further ado, let's welcome this very special guest. Nancy, welcome to the podcast. Such a pleasure to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here, Kripa.
Now, Nancy, many founders think they've done their branding once they have a logo and a color palette, right? But you argue that it goes much deeper. So let's start the conversation by understanding from your perspective, why do founders underestimate branding so much and how does it impact trust and growth? Go ahead.
That's a great question. So I think that a lot of people, it's easy for people to focus on the visuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what comes to mind. But branding's really more about a feeling. And when you think of the brands that are most powerful and resonate most strongly, it's, I mean, sure, people think about the logo, they think about the color, but they get an emotion and they feel something like if you just kind of take a minute and think of what comes to mind, like Nike, like I'm thinking really iconic brands here. And
Right,
okay, the swoosh comes to mind, but
right,
there's immediately like an idea of Nike. Like you might think of some of the athletes that they represent, or like Michael Jordan and their iconic brands that they've had within a brand. And
mm-hmm.
you probably feel like you want to get up and move a little bit, or
Yeah,
it energizes you and it creates this feeling. And that doesn't come easily. It comes through, years of collaborative storytelling and really building this vision of what the brand means. And I think a lot of times people get caught up and they think, okay, visually, I've got a logo, I'm ready to go.
mm-hmm.
I have my product. My product like is going to speak for itself.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't. There's a lot of products on the market. And if you want to stand out from your competitors, what's going to make that difference is the storytelling and that emotional resonance that
Right.
really comes through with your brand that their other clients don't have.
Very well articulated. I think what you said, understanding that your brand is the emotional connection that you built with your audience, not just your font choice, is what truly influences that buying decision. So, thank you so much for those insights. Next, I'd like to touch upon building a strong brand foundation that also scales. So, when we talk about the small businesses or specifically early stage businesses that define strong positioning without a big budget because they are usually counting every penny, every dollar that's going out of their pocket, right? So, how do you suggest, without investing heavily financially, how do you get your story and branding out in the perfect right way?
I think a lot of it really comes down to clarity. So when you look at the best brands and why they
Yeah.
succeed, it usually comes down to three things. So they know who they serve. They have like a really deep understanding of their audience. They know what problem they're trying to solve for their
Right.
audience. And then they also know their competitors. So it's difficult to win if you don't know who you're competing against. So
Yes.
if you go back to that sports analogy that we had later on, like, you could be training to run and you're running against these really junior average runners and you're going to blow them out of the water. But if you're going against Olympians and you do the same training, you're really not going to fare very well. So you need to know your competition. And then you need to really have a deep understanding of what makes you different, better, and special
Mm-hmm.
from all of those competitors. Um, and I think one other thing along that line too is that so many people try to sound too broad or they appeal
Yeah.
to too many people. And to be successful, you don't need everybody to love you. You just need some people to love you and keep loving you and really be loyal to you. And I think one of
Yes.
the analogies, I keep going back to shoe brands here, but I like if you look at Birkenstocks, like it's a
Yeah.
250-year-old company that has $2.5 billion in annual revenue. And they've managed to, keep up that attraction for like hundreds of years. And
Mm.
if you also poll people, half of the population hates them. Like they've done this thing, like it's like a very love or hate. And
Right.
it doesn't matter to them. Like they don't try to change who they are and appeal to that half of the people. They're like, they're not our people. They don't love us. Like we don't need that. But what they do need to do is focus in on who they serve and the problems they're serving for that, and then repeat that and find ways to make it different and elevate it over time.
Wow, the clarity that you explain things with, just all makes so much sense because setting your brand's North Star early, as you said, it allows you to scale with confidence and ensure your message remains consistent as your team grows. So, great examples there as well. But I'm sure you've talked to so many people, come across so many businesses, but still you've seen a pattern, a recognition of, everyone making those same silly common mistakes out there despite the over exaggeration of what not to do. So I'd love to now touch upon the mistakes that companies make. So please go ahead and educate our listeners about what are the most common branding mistakes and how do you suggest founders fix them.
So I think I alluded to that a little bit in my other answer, but it was really about that, like trying to appeal to everyone.
Right.
And I think some of that comes probably from pitching your ideas, and then people are like, oh, we're not interested in this, maybe this. And then they kind of flip flop back and forth. And I think interestingly enough, like this is probably only going to become more problematic as we enter into this world of AI.
Yeah.
Because if you rely on it too heavily, you are going to kind of get something that is very generic. So I think the biggest thing is like trying to appeal to a really, really broad audience, trying to be too generic, and not being true to who you are. And
Mm.
again, what makes it different and stand out from your competitors.
Uh, Great answer there as well. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners now know what not to do. And that is not to appeal to everyone because not everyone is your target audience. And on that note, I'd like to give a special message to all of our listeners now, specifically to all the entrepreneurs and visionaries watching. In 2026, your brand is either a bridge or a barrier to your success. Silver lining marketing is proving that brands people love are built on insight and integrated strategy. They've recently merged with Room Women and Women of Influence, expanding their ability to drive high impact growth for diverse portfolios. If you feel your current branding isn't reflecting the true value of your work, don't wait for a crisis to change it. Visit silverliningmarketing.com and see how a storytelling driven perspective can help you scale your North American presence. Build a brand that supports your future, not one that holds you back. Now, coming back to you, Nancy, um, fixing foundational branding errors early, it prevents that identity crisis that often stalls businesses just as they hit their peak momentum as well. And very interestingly, you also mentioned artificial intelligence, which I was planning for a later part of the conversation, but still, now that you've mentioned it, um, here's a question for you specifically, because we're in the space of storytelling and media. With AI now coming into the picture, majority of these things have changed the narrative of production and how quickly we're able to produce something, right? Let's do a little time travel. Say I were to give you a time machine and we were to go 5 or 10 years into the future. When you get out of the time machine, how exactly are you able to imagine artificial intelligence changing this entire storytelling, branding, marketing, and PR game and globally?
Oh my gosh, that's like that's the magic question, right? Like
Right.
one knows. I think what's kind of exciting is like nobody knows that answer,
Yeah.
right? And it's like a very unique time in history where I think really like so many people can make educated guesses as to what the future is. I think this is one of the unique times in that we don't really know what the future is going to like hold in
Right.
terms of that. And I think it's like exciting. It's a little bit scary, but it's also exciting. I think that where I hope that it would go, or the direction, is that we would utilize it to, I guess, help organize our thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Right.
and to build a framework and play that back, but then to be able to take that and add something that's uniquely human or experiential to that. I think if that doesn't happen, we're going to have a pretty flat, a pretty flat, um,
Right.
uncreative world. And I'd like to think, I think that the market's going to demand that we have to go in that direction, because I think people are going to get bored very quickly with
Yes.
that kind of watered down same reliance. So
Right.
I hope that it elevates us and just saves some time in organizing thoughts, and then allows people to use that additive time to really focus on the creative element of it.
I think that was a very balanced answer because I agree with you, Nancy. It's the blend of AI with the human touch that is going to, make wonders happen. So thank you so much for that answer. And the future definitely looks very interesting. And branding and marketing people are not going anywhere. So even I have that vision. We talked about your partnerships as well in the special messages, right? So from that perspective now, please go ahead and make us understand what does the word storytelling mean to you, and also these community initiatives and community impact. How do you think this helps in bringing the community together as well?
Well, I think storytelling is really about emotional connection. And if you think of storytelling, like it happens on so many different levels. And like it could just be two people talking or a group of people talking and telling stories. And what keeps people's attention or keeps them excited is that they can relate. It's the relatability of that. And I think going back to AI and what we talked about earlier, I think that's where if people try to use AI on their own, it's going to
Mhm.
fall short, because AI doesn't have emotions, at least not at least not yet. And so it's just pulling information together and then spitting out information back at you.
Right.
And so you need emotion of you need something that's going to tug at people's heartstrings. And I think I was listening to an interview recently with Sting, and they were asking him the question of like AI and music, and he was
Uh,
like, I'm not worried about it, because he's like, people respond to those stories. And I think the same thing holds true with branding and brand storytelling. People respond to emotion, and that's difficult to replicate through AI.
Beautifully answered. I think combining strategic marketing with influential community platforms also it allows for a level of reach and resonance that we can't usually touch. I'm loving this conversation today, and definitely I would love for you to be back, hopefully for an in-person episode that we do the next with you. But for now, Nancy, before we let you go, if there's one final piece of advice that you have for all of our listeners today, specifically for founders who are struggling to stand out in crowded market, if you could whisper one thing into their ears, what would you say and why?
I think it's like, be original and be yourself. You want to stand out in a crowded market, and don't really take some time to discover your value proposition and what it is that makes you different, better, and special from your competitors. And then really resist that urge to flip flop on your offerings. I do see that as like one of the biggest things is, especially as new founders, you're like excited and you want to appeal to everyone and you don't want to lose the sale, but it's almost better to lose like one sale now than that future brand awareness. And I think brand trust, it's difficult to trust a brand when you speak to them or you listen to them, and one time they're saying another thing and the next minute they're saying another thing. So I think the authenticity of having that like consistent messaging and then bringing about emotional connections and storytelling to bring it to life in a different way really resonates with people.
That is a great reminder that your unique story is the only thing your competitors can't copy. Nancy, it was such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you
Oh, thank
so
you
much
for
for being
having
here and
me.
doing this with us.
Thank you so much, Kripa.
All right, that was Nancy Ripton from Silver Lining Marketing, a masterclass in brand foundations, the power of storytelling, and how to build an identity that scales in 2026. To all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning into the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and visit CanadianSME.ca for more such resources. To learn more about how we are supporting the ecosystem, please visit the Canadian SME Small Business Foundation at smbfoundation.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our partners, UPS, our shipping partner, and ADP, our HR partner, for their ongoing commitment to empowering SMBs across Canada. I'll see you all in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.